Hello and welcome to my video lecture on how to code if statements. So if statements test an expression, and that's what they do. That's their lot in life. So here we've got an example of an if statement with no other clauses. So here we've got an if. We open up parentheses. We have some kind of expression. In this case, we are testing to see if the value of the price variable is less than or equal to 0. So that's the expression. If that expression is true, the lines of code that are in between the curly braces get executed. That's how this works. So I'm going to run this if statement. When this if statement runs, it tests to see if price is less than or equal to 0. If it is, the variable message is going to be set equal to the price must be greater than 0. So this would be a data validation test of sorts to make sure that the user, when they entered a price into, say, an input, a text input, that was then the value of which was then put into another local variable called price. If that value was tested and we found out that the price was less than or equal to 0, we're going to start to compile an error message that we want to confront the user with, one of which is going to tell the user that the price must be greater than 0. So that's your standard basic if statement with no other clauses. Now the question would be, well, what if price is greater than 0? Nothing's going to happen here. But perhaps we're in a situation where we want something to happen. So let's take a look at this if statement. So an if statement with an else clause. So here's our if. We open up a paren, and then we're going to look at this expression. So this expression is testing to see if the variable first name is empty, which it's no. Which tests to see if it's null. And then what we're going to do is, if that's true, if it is empty, we're going to run the code that's between these two curly braces. See how the curly brace ends? So this has a beginning and an end. So we're going to set the message variable equal to you must enter your first name. Else, so if first name is not empty, we're going to set the message equal to, again, we've got another set of curly braces, which encloses the line or lines of code that are going to be executed if empty, if first name is not empty. The message is going to be set equal to hello, concatenated with first name, which is then subsequently concatenated with an exclamation point. Okay. We can also have multiple tests happening. So we can test to see if investment is empty, then the message is going to be set equal to investment as a required field. Else, we can test another if to see if investment is not numeric, and then have a different message. And then we can do another test using an else if, and we can test to see if investment is less than or equal to 0, in which point we have a different message. And then if all of those other tests fail, we have a catch-all, which is our else, and then we can say, we can set the message equal to investment is valid. So we can test to see, right, did they give us an investment or did they leave it blank? If they gave it to us, did they give us a number? And if they gave us a number, is it greater than or equal to 0? And if all those tests, in this case, fail, so it fails down to the else, then we see we have a valid investment value. We can test, now that we know about the relational operators, we can do compound expressions. So in this case, we can combine what we were doing here in these else ifs and do it in one test. So we can test to see if it's empty, or it's not, or the investment variable is not numeric, or the investment is less than or equal to 0, we can simply give the user a message that the investment must be a valid number greater than 0. We can do that in one step. So here we have, again, we have open parens that encapsulate the entire expression that's being tested. And then we have ORs, or operators, that are going to allow us to test multiple things. So if this is true, or this is true, or this is true, we can hit the user with one error message. Then we can also have nested if statements. So we can test, we can do things like testing to see if months is empty, or to see if months is non-numeric, or if months is less than or equal to 0, we hit the user with an error message. Else, which means we have good months, else we're going to test to see if years is equal to, well, that's not going to be the test. We're going to do years is equal to months divided by 12, and then we're going to test to see if years is greater than 1. We're going to say that that's a long-term investment, and if years is greater than 1, it's a long-term investment. But if it's not, then it's going to be a short-term investment, because that means it's less than a year. All right, so those are our examples of using if statements. So you have if statements with no clauses, if statements with an else clause, with a failover else clause. We have if statements that have multiple tests. So we have an if, an else if, another else if, and then a catch-all. And then we finally have compound conditional expressions and nested if statements. And that concludes my video lecture on the use of the if conditional testing statement.